Belarus is becoming a dangerous player. Lukashenko is flirting with the West while at the same time preparing for war. Large-scale exercises with Russia, 100,000 troops, all under the guise of peace. What is Minsk hiding, and why do statements about dialogue go hand in hand with nuclear threats? Ukraine is sounding the alarm. Intelligence has uncovered Russia's plan through Belarus. Meanwhile, Lukashenko is offering himself as a peacemaker. It's a trap. And what does this change for Ukraine and Europe? All the details right now. Welcome. This is Ukraine Today. I'm Solomia Dolik, and here are the latest events. Lukashenko has stabbed Putin in the back. A loud statement from Minsk. Belarus, which was in the Kremlin's shadow just yesterday, is now trying to bare its teeth and break free from Putin's influence. Belarus is ready for dialogue with Ukraine for the first time in a long while. The head of the Belarusian State Security Committee, Ivan Tertel, stated that his agency is ready for dialogue with Kiev. According to him, President Alexander Lukashenko is working on stabilizing the situation in the region.
Our president is doing everything possible to stabilize the situation in the region. And we have managed to balance the interests of the parties in this extremely difficult situation with a tendency toward escalation.
According to him, there is a way out, and it lies in calm and compromise. Only quiet negotiations and the search for common ground can stop the confrontation. However, the key to this is in the hands of the Ukrainian side. The country could cease to exist as a state. This is how Alexander Lukashenko accused Ukraine of refusing dialogue if Volodymyr Zelensky does not start negotiations. So what is Minsk really planning? Analysts are sounding the alarm. The Lukashenko regime seems to be trying to free itself from the shackles of sanctions. Minsk is launching a diplomatic offensive. Belarusian diplomats are actively seeking contacts with Europe, offering participation in peace initiatives to resolve the war in Ukraine. But here's the paradox. While Belarusian diplomats are seeking new approaches to Europe, Lukashenko continues to hold hands with Putin. Last month, Russia and Belarus conducted large-scale military exercises called West 2025. According to official Kremlin data, about 100,000 troops took part in the maneuvers. This is not just an exercise, it's a loud signal. Despite peace initiatives, Minsk is not breaking ties with Moscow but is still maneuvering between two fires. While Lukashenko tries to balance between the West and Moscow, the Kremlin acts much more directly and far more dangerously. Behind Minsk's loud diplomatic initiatives hides the real situation. Belarus is sinking ever deeper into Russia's military orbit. And now there is a new alarming signal. President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky announced a report from the Foreign Intelligence Service regarding another Russian plan. And this plan directly concerns the territory of Belarus.
Ole Ivashchenko reported on the Russian plan for further military exploitation of Belarusian territory. At this stage, we will not make this information public. We will warn the partners who may be at risk.
In addition, the head of the Foreign Intelligence Service reported intelligence data regarding the effects of sanctions. According to Zelensky, they are limiting Russia's ability to continue and expand the war.
Putin's system will not withstand the confrontation into which he has led Russia. Today we identified the key directions for our further pressure. I instructed to work with the relevant countries.
Lukashenko is wriggling as best he can, balancing between the West and Moscow as if on a knife's edge. Sanctions are strangling the economy, the state machinery is creaking, and the people are on the brink of survival. But instead of concessions, there is the rattling of weapons. Recently, the Belarusian leader openly voiced threats, including references to the possible use of Russian nuclear weapons from Belarusian territory. Is this diplomacy or blackmail on the verge of madness? A peacemaker or a puppet in Putin's hands? What lies behind this chaotic and at times bipolar behavior of the Belarusian dictator? You'll find out more in the following report.
There's been some positive momentum in the trend of resuming the Belarusian-American dialogue. It's time to say something about this.
Lukashenko is desperately trying to sit on two chairs at once.
Vladimir Alexandrovich needs to calm down. There are good proposals on the table.
For a long time, he was considered one of Putin's most loyal allies. Suddenly, he began to show openness to contacts with the US.
Yes, interesting cufflinks with the image of the White House. But I'll try not to be in anyone's debt.
Journalists write that he is looking for a way out of the isolation into which Putin dragged him, so he has intensified contacts with the European Union. Washington, despite the European Union, began engaging with Belarus, sending several delegations to Minsk this year.
And everything should be fair, just like we once agreed with the Americans.
Minsk took advantage of the open window of opportunity. Lukashenko eagerly tried to regain at least some trust from the Americans. Putin's staunch ally began to praise Trump.
Trump deserved that Nobel Prize, and it should have been given to him. Trump did quite a lot for peace.
In September, he had a phone conversation with Donald Trump and even called him a respected leader. It is clear that the cunning Belarusian dictator hopes to achieve at least a partial lifting of Western sanctions.
He is of one mind with the president of Iran, believing that sanctions are a time of opportunity. For us, it is very important not to waste this time.
Lukashenko understands that Iran and Africa are not much help and Putin's money is running out. Lukashenko has signaled that he is ready to talk with Volodymyr Zelensky.
Our position is that it is necessary to meet and, even in this most difficult situation, to find consensus. This work is also underway. Of course, much here depends on the Ukrainian side. Our president is doing everything possible to stabilize the situation in the region.
In recent weeks, Belarusian diplomats have reportedly been actively holding a series of meetings with European representatives. In Brussels, this gesture was seen as an attempt by Lukashenko to climb out of the sanctions pit in order to return to international trade.
Let's try to work out a global deal, as Mr. Trump likes, a big deal. That's what he calls it.
Journalists report that it is Yuri Ambrazovich, appointed as Belarus's ambassador to the Vatican, who is effectively coordinating Minsk's contacts with Western Europe. He conveyed a message to European diplomats that Belarus seeks to break out of political isolation and is allegedly ready to play the role of mediator between Russia and Ukraine.
That is why, for us, a sovereign, independent Ukraine is a major and crucial issue. It should be peaceful, not create any problems or threats for anyone, and develop as an independent state. We support this, we are for peace, and in this regard we are ready to work. As the closest ally of Russia in resolving the Ukrainian crisis, as well as in building the regional security architecture, Belarusians, as I have already said, are assigned a certain role. The Americans have noticed us in this process.
Europe is reacting cautiously to the convulsions of Belarus's Lukashenko, knowing that the mustachioed leader likes to play a double game.
But action must be taken urgently, because regardless of everything, Russia is advancing on the front. I say this responsibly since I observe it practically every day, and this could lead to the disappearance of Ukraine as a state.
European diplomats acknowledge that Minsk is trying to demonstrate independence from Moscow. But most believe that Lukashenko does not have real independence. Recently, the Belarusian authorities once again arrested several opposition members and at the same time conducted joint military exercises with Russia.
We are not trying to conquer anyone because we wouldn't be able to conquer anyone. We understand this perfectly well. There are strong states around us. What more is there to say? But we are always ready to inflict unacceptable damage if anyone sets foot on our land.
For show, they supposedly invited American soldiers to Zapad 2025.
Thank you for the invitation.
We'll save the best seats for another day.
While telling the US about his peaceful intentions, Lukashenko is playing along with Putin, for example, by proposing to build a nuclear power plant in eastern Belarus to supply electricity to the Ukrainian territories temporarily occupied by the Kremlin.
If a decision is made, we will immediately start building a new power unit or a new plant if such a need arises in Western Russia and in the liberated regions. The government will calculate this.
The issue of financing does not arise at all.
Lukashenko, like a seasoned card sharp, flirts with the West while not letting go of the Kremlin's hand that feeds him.
You said that the Americans asked you to pass a message to Moscow. Is there anything like that this time?
I'll pass along all the messages to him tomorrow.
Such maneuvers by Minsk, trying to please both sides, usually end with one of the chairs breaking.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
Incredible. Belarus is deploying troops right near NATO's borders. What is Lukashenko planning? The army has been put on alert amid the escalation in the Baltics. Lukashenko has made up his mind. He's going into battle first. What will this mean for him? And will the West be able to immediately extinguish the flames of Russian Belarusian audacity? We'll talk about this in just a moment.
Putin's little green men are already at Estonia's doorstep. It seems the bunker is preparing a Crimea 2.0 operation in Europe. Western media are publishing footage where you can see armed men on the road. Judging by their uniforms, it's clear these are not Russian border guards. Due to the sudden activation of unidentified Russian troops in the areas of checkpoints between Russia and Estonia, the police department has urgently closed the country's eastern borders.
We decided to close the road to prevent possible provocations and incidents. Our main goal is the safety of the Estonian population. Kunter Pedosk, operations manager of the Southern Prefecture.
The safety of our own population is the top priority for all Baltic countries. For example, starting today, Latvia is deporting at least 841 Russian citizens from the country. This concerns Russians who were unable to prove even a basic knowledge of the Latvian language. The EU country no longer wants to see the Kremlin's fifth column on its territory.
The presence of such Russians in Latvia will be considered illegal. Their access to social services will be closed. If the Russians stay, they will face deportation. Madara Puk is a representative of the Latvian Office of Citizenship and Migration Affairs.
Due to the possible threat of a Russian attack on NATO, the alliance is preparing to evacuate 1,200,000 people. This is the number of citizens, according to the authorities of Latvia, Lithuania and Estonia, who would need to flee from war in the event of aggression from the Kremlin. We are talking about at least a 40-kilometer wide strip along the borders with Russia and Belarus. For Lithuania, this means a total evacuation. There, even the capital would fall into the potential frontline zone. However, in Vilnius, they are confident that such a scenario is unlikely.
An emergency of such scale is unlikely to arise in a single day. That is, it would have to start with some localized evacuations. But we proceed from the assumption that ultimately our capacities must be calculated to evacuate all Vilnius residents, all 600,000 people.
Meanwhile, in Estonia, which has closed its borders to accepting internally displaced persons, local churches, schools, universities, and sports arenas are all preparing for this. Special transport, trains, and buses are being allocated for this purpose. Residents are being informed about possible evacuation points and are given maps and information about evacuation routes. Europeans themselves are preparing food supplies, first aid kits, and packing emergency bags in case they need to flee suddenly.
People have been talking about this for a long time, for weeks and even months now. At work, everywhere. We'll see how things turn out. For now, we need to take care of the urgent matters.
The total population of the Baltic countries exceeds 6 million people, with almost 2.9 million living in Lithuania, nearly 2 million in Latvia, and 1.4 million in Estonia. In Vilnius, evacuation plans are being prepared for about a quarter of the population. Latvia will evacuate a third and Estonia 10%. According to military analysts, if Putin launches a full-scale offensive against the Baltic countries, every single resident there could become a refugee without exception.
They have platforms for various types of missile weaponry, which can strike in the shortest possible time. As one of our sources told us, these systems can literally be rolled out of garages. For example, at the Luga military base, 100 kilometers from the Estonian border, it takes just 5 minutes to load Iskander missiles and launch them in quantities that can cover the entire territory of Estonia and most of Latvia.
Meanwhile, Russian propaganda, foaming at the mouth, insists that the Kremlin's intentions are purely peaceful, and the Baltic countries have nothing to fear. Even the bunker dweller himself, putting on an innocent face, tries to reassure the West.
We have never initiated military confrontation ourselves. It's pointless, unnecessary, just unnecessary, and simply absurd. They can't possibly believe that. They can't possibly believe what they're saying, that Russia is planning to attack NATO. So it's impossible to believe this nonsense.
This is pretty much how, on the eve of February 2022, Moscow insisted they weren't planning to attack Ukraine. In 2014, Putin also denied the involvement of Russian army soldiers in the annexation of Crimea. So it's no surprise that after noticing the little green men, the Baltic countries began preparing for the worst.
The nature of hybrid warfare is such that you might not realize, is this already a war, an isolated attack, or just an accident? For example, damaged communication cables in the Baltic Sea or the plane that recently crashed in Lithuania. Was that an attack or an accident? Not to mention the ongoing problems with GPS signals in the area of the Suwałki corridor.
Putin's loyal ally, Alexander Lukashenko, is also actively adding fuel to the fire at NATO's borders. He has managed to stage yet another dirty provocation, suddenly putting the Belarusian troops on alert. The country's Ministry of Defense cheerfully reported that units have already moved out to certain areas to carry out the tasks specified in the father's order.
The armed forces units involved in the combat readiness check are moving to their designated areas.
However, analysts assure that all of this is more for show than actual preparation for a real invasion. Belarus will continue to constantly escalate the situation and threaten with combat readiness checks. As for the Russian army, it is so bogged down in the war in Ukraine that the Kremlin does not have the strength to open a second front. However, everything could change quickly.
Recruiting new soldiers takes quite a long time. But in principle, this is probably a matter of 2 or 3 weeks. Something like that, because there are quite capable units at the front in Ukraine. So all that's needed is to simply transfer them. That won't take much time. And then arm them somehow, reorganize them.
Among experts, there is also the opinion that Russia is already preparing for war with NATO and could strike earlier than intelligence expects. The American Institute for the Study of War claims that Moscow has entered the so-called zero phase in preparing for a confrontation with the alliance. Russia is creating reserves and developing new tactics for waging war without the mass use of armored vehicles, and is capable of launching new aggression without waiting for the full restoration of its army after the war in Ukraine. Whether Putin will be deterred or will actually attack the Baltic countries, we will find out very soon.
What do you think? Is Lukashenko really preparing a dangerous game? Or is this just a diplomatic trick to get sanctions lifted? Share your opinion in the comments. Hit the like button under the video and follow the main events with me. There's even more to come. See you in the next episode.